Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share a little bit about the Hindu Vedic understanding about preserving the environment. Um, so Mary mentioned quite a few things. I will try and keep it brief. I'm not going to repeat what she mentioned, but she mentioned something about Mother Bhumi or the earth, from the Hindu Vedic tradition. So also the ancient Indian scripture, the Manusamhita, it reminds us that we have seven mothers. Now, I'm going to share cite a few figures and statistics and things like that, but I'm not going to give the sources right now, just to keep it brief, but you can always ask me later. So from the Hindu perspective, I mean, Mary mentioned do we have a common purpose and sense of interdependence? Do we have a capacity to see the sacred in our relationships? And what can we do? What can we do to help with the environment? So, from the Hindu perspective, a very important part is that we cannot have a serious discussion about being environmentally astute without discussing how the choices we make when we sit down and eat impacts our ecosystem. Therefore, the Vedas strongly advocate a vegetarian diet, and that standard is confirmed by World Watch. Now, Mahatma Gandhi said the greatness of a nation can be judged by the way its animals are treated. Mary also mentioned something regarding fossil fuel, and regarding that, there's some relevant facts I'll just share. It requires 284 gallons of oil to raise a 1,200-pound cow. So, and the raw materials to produce food from livestock is greater than the value of all oil, gas, coal consumed in this country. So just to give an idea, like for farmland potential, an acre of land, you can do 38,400 pounds of apples, 36,000 pounds of potatoes, 28,000 oranges, and 2,600 loaves of bread, but only 250 pounds of beef. So what we eat has a greater impact on the environment than what we drive. Atmosphere, the animal-based agriculture contributes to 80% more greenhouse gases to the atmosphere than all other forms of transportation put together. Since the mid-1990s, the United Nations has reported that all 17 of the world's major fishing areas have been fished to the point that sustainability is seriously in question. Debates about holes in the ozone layer pale in comparison to what is currently happening in our oceans. So just an environmental shower map, assuming you're environmentally savvy and individual, you have replaced your 3 gallons per minute shower head with a low flow 2 gallons per minute flow. A 7-minute daily shower would consume 14 gallons of water. However, if you ate a burger for lunch, the water consumed to make the quarter-pound burger would be 1,303 gallons of water. So, to offset that use of water would require that we do not take a shower for the next 93 days. But then you would really stink badly, so the rest of us would prefer you just stop eating animals. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Our next speaker will be Rabbi Michael Locker, the Ventura County community rabbi.
Who has never spoken for 3 minutes on any subject. One of my favorite quotes from our prayer book is, pray as if everything depends upon God, and act as if everything depends upon you. And I discovered to my amazement, this is a quote from St. Augustine. So, great interfaith connection. I am a believer in organized religion. People will tell me all the time, I'm spiritual, I don't believe in organized religion. I'm a believer in organized religion. If our job is to make the world better, why not organize? If people need blood, I can stand on the corner and shout, give blood, or we can organize a blood drive. I want to dispute Thomas Merton, who said to concentrate not on the results, but on the value, the rightness, the truth of the work itself. I absolutely disagree. I want to concentrate on the results. Um, the key issue, I think, here is an economic and a political one. In the world of economics and politics, there is something called an internal rate of return. By the way, I should mention, I've been a rabbi for a little over 20 years. In my first career, I was a physicist, and I've been working in alternative energy for more than 50 years. I was an entrepreneur who put up wind farms in Hawaii and in California, and also worked for Israeli firms on large-scale solar and geothermal. So this is a very familiar field to me. And the economics of alternative energy and of climate change are something I spent my life working on. The issue is, what's our payback time? You're going to invest something, your money, your effort, your political capital. How soon do you want to get paid back? If you're an investor and you're looking, let's say, for, I don't know, a 10% return, that's like 7 years. If you're a member of the House of Representatives, you want to get paid back in 2 years. If you're a senator with a long-term view, it's 6 years. The issue for us is the investment to make this world a better place is a very long-term payback. That is a religious idea. I would say we, as members of faith communities, have an obligation to teach that religious idea and to insist on people that call themselves religious, but still want to basically disassemble the Environmental Protection Agency, who has and now declared environmental, I don't know why we're here. But climate change is no longer a problem. Haven't you read the breaking news, CNN? It's no longer a problem. So we have an obligation as religious people to make the world a better place and to insist that the people that represent us make the world a better place. Progress and growth aren't necessarily bad. There are things I want more of. I want to live longer lives. I want more health care. I want more clean water. You mentioned how many people don't have access to clean water. I want to have access to communication. I want to have access to learning. All of those things take energy. Ultimately, I would say that's the issue for us, is to teach those who represent us not to teach, because they know, but they choose to ignore it for short-term political and financial reasons. I want to go beyond, in the world of sermons, we talk about salad sermons, because they end with the word, let us do this, and let us do that, and let us do it. We need to insist that the people that represent us, if they really want to call themselves people of religion, because politically they want to do that they actually follow religious teachings as beautifully presented. Thank
you, Rabbi. And next we have Joe Zubak, an environmental engineer representing the Christian faith.
First, as a Padre Sarah member, since its founding, I'd like to invite all of you. Delighted to see you here and see this particular topic being discussed here in this location. And I want to thank Mari for reminding us of how our religious tradition obliges us to be stewards of God's creation. And she focused primarily on making us aware, which is great. What I'm going to do is talk a little bit about actions we can take to fulfill these obligations. And I'm going to, in the interest of time, I'll skip through a lot of this. But I really want to reference an article that came out just last week by a noted climatologist by the name of Catherine Hayhoe. She's a noted climatologist, she's an evangelical Christian, and she writes articles every week. This one was called More Than Thoughts and Prayers. Very interesting article. What she does is oh, I'm sorry. We good? Okay. Well, like a rock singer for this thing. So she calls it More Than Thoughts and Prayers. And what she discusses is how faith communities are taking actions, and she she boiled down her findings into good news and not so good news. So the good news is that many Christian faith groups are actively organizing to make a difference. So she cites, for example, the Presbyterian Church has 362 certified Earth Care congregations. The Nazarenes for Creation Care have the Earth Eco Church program. World Evangelical Alliance has mobilized 600 million evangelicals around their creation care program, and on it goes. And of course, we mentioned Laudato Si for the Catholics earlier, and I wanted to point out that this has been very effective. The Catholic Diocese of San Diego, interestingly enough, 70% of their 97 parishes have installed solar panels. And 90% of their electricity is renewable energy. So you can make progress if you're properly motivated. But she also acknowledges other faith communities, the Diana, the Jewish call for climate action, Green Muslims, Modern Sanghas, and many. So enormous amount of activity going on is trying to make a difference. But what's interesting is the not so good news. She said that there's a study that found that 90% of Christian leaders in the world agree that humans are changing the climate. We should think that's great news. But it found that only half of these leaders ever reported their beliefs to their congregations, and only a quarter ever brought the topic up more than once. So the study further notes, and I'll quote this because it's worth noting, it's because of Christian leadership's silence regarding climate change, rank and file Christians think most of their leaders don't believe in climate change. And researchers found that if churchgoers were informed about the 90% consensus among their religious leaders that of the reality of climate change, they're more likely to agree that taking action to reduce climate change is aligned with their church's values. So whether it's through papal encyclicals, denominational initiatives, or grassroots movements, Christians are called to recognize that creation care is a moral obligation rooted in their faith, and their actions can make a tangible difference in the health of the planet and the well-being of God's creation. So finally, as Mari noted, we have the science and resources for green revolution. I like that because I'm an engineer. but do we have common purpose? And also, do we, especially our religious leaders, have the courage, let me say it again, to have the courage to let our beliefs be known and lead meaningful action in our faith communities that helps protect God's creation? So let us pray that God gives all of us the courage to do so.
Finally, Imam Muhammad Shoyab of the Islamic Center of Conejo Valley.
Well, thank you very much. It's ironical I have to use a mic to talk climate change, and yet I'm using energy that I could have avoided using, but regardless, it is what it is. And why I share this beginning with you is for the following reason. God in the Quran, for example, says repeatedly, "Inna Allah la yuhibbul musrifin," that I do not like the one that is a musrif. A musrif is the one that uses beyond what they should be utilizing for any given thing for that matter. So, for example, you'll notice I went to an event on Saturday it was, and one thing about being a religious leader, for some reason they think it is spiritual to call you for every event. And regardless, you go to that event and you'll see people heaping their plates, filling it up. People are starving in the world, people are dying in the world, even in the United States. And you tell someone, so why are you taking out so much more than you really need? Oh, I don't want to offend my host. So as a consequence of that, if you take this attitude, every day thousands and thousands of gallons of milk, of vegetable, of food is being thrown away, even by major department stores like Ralph's, etc. And you ask them why? Well, we cannot lower the price, because by lowering the price, we don't just want some riffraff walking into our stores. We want to keep standards at a certain level. You see the problem. So God says, "Inna Allah la yuhibbul musrifin." Do not be amongst the individual that waste, whether it's your food, whether it's your clothing. In other words, if you don't need something, you don't need to run behind Gucci and Prada and Dolce and Gabbana. Wow, I wonder how I know those names. But anyway, the point, you see the irony again. On one hand, as religious people, we talk about it. On the other hand, we are also consuming. So I know the essence of time. God in the Quran says, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ لَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ قَالُوا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ مُصْلِحُونَ. I'll make it very easy for you. Do not be like those individuals that say the following. After creating corruption on earth, they create corruption on various levels. And when you ask them, but why are you doing this? It is wrong that you are doing whatever it may be, eating, drinking, economics, politics, etc. Why do you? No, 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 no. I have good intention behind it. That means I can walk around, slap each one of you, but my intention was good. I'm trying to teach you something. Who goes around slapping people? Who goes around taking away human rights and dignity? So God says very beautifully from the beginning point. Start off your journey in the way in which God expects you to start off your journey. Simply stated, when that child is born and the child only needs 7 pairs of clothing, because kids puke a lot, fine, give them seven pieces, and that's it. There's no need, oh, it's my baby, I need 15, 20, 30 sets of whatever. And as you are growing up, thereafter, try to reduce what is required on every level. As God in the Quran says, do not be like the one that corrupts the earth and thereafter says, I'm doing that which is good. Because in reality, when you do something that is evil from the gifts that God has given you, unfortunately, it doesn't matter whether you're a Muslim or not, evil will also come your way. So if you want change, create positive change. And if you do not create the positive change, well, you'll be smacked in the head till change comes your way. And that's not the way you and I need to be going as adult and responsible stewards on this planet Earth. May God help us and guide us wherever we want.
Thank you, Ramon.